as our careers in architecture come to an end, there you get the whole work. So this exhibition has a chance to survey a very broad curve of our work. When we were in the middle of it, I used to tell Bob, we're in for a long haul. It's going to be a long, slow curve. Be patient. And now that curve is complete. And so, or almost complete. We've got a little kick in us still.
Just right there. Perfect. Okay.
It was great being in their conference room and just seeing all their work, examples of their work everywhere, just sort of all over the place, and in this sort of, not really haphazard, but just a whole collage of stuff. That was really exciting to see.
Venturi, Denise got around, they're more than just architects. They're, to me, they're icons. They're iconic in the way that they have changed the course of architecture. I think they are people who are driven by a cause and driven by their beliefs. And they're not just driven, but they actually are capable of implementing their beliefs through their publications and through their design work. And they do it very well.
You guys can't realize, how at that time how terrible and naughty we were. I mean, all these things we did were so naughty. The other day we went out to Guildhouse, that building we did, and everyone loves it, and it was a big celebration and all that. And I was just reminding people, when I was designing that building, I thought, when I put that white stripe on it, there's a little white stripe up there that as an ornament, and I kept thinking, oh my God, am I decadent? Should I do this? I mean, my God. And then I had that column in the center, a column making a duality. At the end, you go around the column. You don't do that. And there it is. And then we had a sign, big sign as part of the architecture saying Guildhouse. You can put any signs on buildings. If you put a sign, it would be a little sign this big saying, a little plaque saying, design, open such and such a thing. So it's sort of interesting that these things that are, when they were new, were so atrocious, are now, no, big deal. Why are you making such a big deal? You guys wouldn't know that. You weren't even born then.
I think there's really a surge in interest in their work again, particularly in the ideas that they propose, kind of that surface really communicates these ideas of culture, ideas of identity and history. Now surfaces again this kind of hot topic in architecture when people are making these digital blobs, and so now it's kind of an issue of, well, now that we have this modernist stance again, how do we reintegrate an acknowledgement of social use?
And that's the sign of our actual model of the M.
That is the actual M that you have in the basement, which is almost 20 feet tall. Mm-hmm. And there's hard conduit in there, so we're going to look into the possibility of getting it illuminated again.
Actually, I wouldn't mind measuring the length of the legs.
It's up against the window, the great window that faces the Kahn building across the street.
Yes.
So it'll be this thing will be an icon at night. People on the street will see it.
As part of their original study, they really took the idea of, learning from pop culture and learning from commercial culture, actually. So that included what was kind of a vernacular of signage.
Yeah. I have 10'6" by 1'4.5".
Actually, when we said we went to Las Vegas, we were really going to Los Angeles. We said, we're going to study Los Angeles, which is the automobile city. And then we said, well, instead of Los Angeles, let's go to Las Vegas because it's sort of more pure and more simple. And when we went to Las Vegas, we looked at the Strip. Las Vegas now is very different. It's become a kind of scenographic Disneyland. That's entirely different from the Las Vegas we looked at.
When we began to really analyze science, we came across this very interesting conclusion that despite its very colorful facade, look at the overall of the sign, and it's a contraption. It's designed the same way you design a camera for the same reasons. it's got to have the right focal length, it's got to have the right height. It's really a piece of functional design. Not only its support, which is wonderful to go around the back of the signs and see this ultra-functional design, but the whole set of relationships. You see a sign for a mile on a highway. Yes. Someone located it as carefully as a cité would have located a church tower. And so from that point of view, the functional design of these contraptions that we call billboards and signs was an amusing discovery.
When you walk in the entry, we're hoping to borrow from you a good number of the posters you have in your office here of your events, because it struck me when I first visited your office how just how great it was to see the events you're involved in, the important events and lectures and exhibitions, because I think it gave me context.
I think themes that they were thinking about then are resurfacing in architecture again. Ideas about graphics and efficiency of some of the really simple moves that they do that can be very effective, that I think were written off as being too pomo and are now actually being revisited for being valuable.
We did research in order to do design. We're professionals, and we were teaching in a professional school, and we're involved in action and making and doing. We don't teach like academics. So that whole thing of urban mapping, which is one of the forms of research, not the only kind, it was always urban mapping for design, research for design. And not only that, the kind of urban mapping that we started in Las Vegas has affected not our urbanism, but our architecture.
We're hoping to replicate, to build a facsimile of the Oberlin column.
It should be easy to build. Well, I would say you should make it an impolite distance from the ceiling, not a polite distance.
You mean closer to the ceiling, so bigger.
It should look as if it's pushing out of its space.
Okay, but not touching, right? It has to,
yes,
yeah, okay.
I don't think they should feel obliged to exactly reproduce the column as it was at Oberlin. They should reproduce it to challenge this space.
Yes. What's important in the size is to get a sense of big scale.
Or maybe you could make it into two parts, to split it.
Split it in half?
Yeah. It's an architectural icon. I can remember when I was an architecture student, it was on the cover of one of the magazines, just this photograph of the column here. Because it was a radical move in its day to sort of create this a caricature of classical architecture.
It was thought that the historical architecture had no relevance for modernism, that modernism was a revolutionary, not an evolutionary development, and you did not look at the past and learn from it. And then on the other hand, when you did write about it and indicating you're learning from it, there was a lot of misunderstanding that you were being wicked because you were kind of implying that you were going to use directly historical architecture, and you weren't doing that. You were using architectural history essentially to learn from and evolve out of. And that was shocking at the time.
And then the people that we shocked turned on us somewhat aggressively and said, okay, you're saying you're learning from Las Vegas. Well, what did you learn? Our backs reared up, partly from their tone, but also it seemed that it was very difficult to define what we learned, as if the lessons were complex and we needed time, and some of them we might never get out. And so a first, maybe aggressive response was, well, what did you learn from the Parthenon? You mean you can't put it in words? Well, then, we can't either. And then at a certain point we said, and correctly, we learned about symbolism. And this is true, and we have, I think, contributed to architecture a very important contribution, which is returning symbolism as one of the functions of architecture. The work of Bob Venturi and Denise Scott Brown truly merits not only the platform, but also the reconsideration of our generation today, so that perhaps they will not only inspire but inform us to how architecture can participate, right, in the context of culture today as it evolves.